I've always played in the enterprise space, Vadim. So like for me, with my background in product management for Install Shield, Admin Studio, then App DNA, and then Citrix, it's always been really heavily focused on these large IT shops that outsource to the big GSIs, right? The MSP space, and even while I spent 8 years at Citrix, we put together a team to try to build a greenfield or white space opportunity to go after those 250 seats and below and the 50 seats and below. And it was too complicated. It was too difficult to put together the subject matter experts. And even with the channel, right? Some of the MSPs, it's hard to establish a value prop around desktop virtualization or server virtualization or VDI in general when you're a car dealership with 15 employees. Like your perspective around building Nerdio to be an MSP focused business at the start, can you tell me a little bit about what made you successful at your previous MSP and why people were able to say, I see the value in terminal services, I see the value in VDI, even though I don't have the subject matter expertise to run it?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I mean, the thing that was really fortunate for us is in the early days we had zero competition, meaning, like you said, the model of doing desktop virtualization for those smaller deployments, there were just no providers out there doing it, primarily because the cost model didn't work. So what we were able to do is we were able to figure out a cost model, and it involved everything really from the ground up in terms of how the hardware is designed. We got into VMware infrastructure 2.5, which was that version of ESX in those days, right? So really early days of server infrastructure virtualization, and we figured out a technical model to be able to amortize the high cost of the investment across a lot of customers, and do so in a way that each customer was completely isolated, kind of layer 2 network and above. So their own Active Directory, their own everything, above that layer 2. Whereas all the other providers were trying to either do what we call a hoteled or a multi-tenant deployment, where you were sharing a lot of infrastructure pieces at the Active Directory level and above, which made it very limited because one change for one customer affects everybody globally in your organization.
Right.
So I think that was a pivotal component of being able to make desktop virtualization cost effective for small deployments. And it could be really as small as you wanted. I mean, it could be 5 users and the numbers would still work. And they worked relative to on-prem deployment to the tune of like 25% savings over a 3-year TCO.
Wow.
And we went to customers and we said, hey, we've been doing IT consulting for you. We've been, refreshing your hardware for several cycles now. We can do that again, like you're up for a refresh, but here is another option. And here is what you get from it. And here's what the cost benefit is, right? And it was a model that nobody was familiar with. They're like, what do you mean you're going to have my infrastructure? What if I need it? How do I see it? How do I get to it? Like all the things that had to be solved when cloud was only starting, we were doing in mid 2000s.
Wow.
So when we figured that model out, so it's not just the technology, but also the commercial model, we decided to create Nerdio as a software layer to enable other MSPs to build a similar, what we called IT as a service model for their small SMB customers. So that's how Nerdio came to be. It was an abstraction layer above everything we've done manually to give other MSPs the ability to deploy small customers cost effectively and provide the same types of services like we were doing.
Rimo3 offers automated pre-deployment testing of Windows applications, OS updates, and security patches. Use unattended automation to test and assess application readiness for Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, as well as identifying MSIX and multi-session suitability. Your apps, your workspace, our priority.